The journey of Shriram Properties has been extremely exciting and remarkable. Started in a very small scale, way back in 1998, with a very small project in Bangalore. That's where the journey started. But journey has not been, the initial part of the journey has not been great. So when we started the business, probably many may recall the Asian financial crisis in 1997, and most importantly NBFC crisis hit our group very badly. There has been serious restrictions for even the conducting the businesses. Hence, from the group, whatever the capital was thought about could not be employed. It is because of the NBFC crisis. And as a group, we had to go through series of difficulties between 98 and 2003. A lot of NBFCs have struggled, and probably some of them have even closed their business. A lot of them suffered a lot. It was a sheer coincidence and series of right activities within Shriram Group that Shriram Group has survived and managed to come out of that crisis, NBFC crisis between 97 and 2003. Today, rest is history, but that was a very tough journey. So as for Shriram Properties, to start with, 98, when we thought we are going to do many projects and a lot of capital is going to come through, unfortunately these crises around us, which are beyond our control, put us into a lot of difficulties. There are two ways of looking at whether it has put us into difficulties or whether it has given an opportunity for us to find ourselves in a much better spot and define your journey in your own way and do much greater things. So in fact, that crisis has helped us a lot to define ourselves in a right way. Started in a very small scale, as I said, from Bangalore, I moved from Chennai to Bangalore. So practically started with the zero capital. I relocated myself to Bangalore. Slowly, we started building the project and slowly started expanding by taking projects on joint development where we did not have capital to deploy to start with. So that was the initial part of the journey. Slowly we are building projects. Few things we wanted to do, and we wanted to stick to few things. One such thing is, we knew what is our strengths. We knew what is the position we should take, and most importantly, we had a clear view of what all we should not do. That was the most defining moment, I would say. Maybe the starvation of capital or non-availability of capital has helped us. I owe not to my great intelligence, I owe not to my great capability, I owe the circumstances, the crisis just forced us to work on certain directions. So probably we could take credit, not for our intelligence, not for our capability, not for building a great business, how to manage this crisis and create an opportunity out of crisis. To that extent, we can take credit. So few things we decided not to do. That's very critical. We thought this business of housing, Prime Minister recently talked about housing for all by 2022. We thought there is a deep necessity for us to do affordable homes, and there is a big demand. And in fact, I estimated in 1999-2000, when I was asked to speak about, I said, next 10 to 15 years, the gap between demand and supply will be much larger. Supply will never be able to meet the demand. Sometime later, about 7-8 years ago, in some of the interview in IIM Bangalore, when somebody asked this question, unfortunately my answer was the same. What I spoke about 7-8 years ago, same answer. So now if you ask me after about another 12 years, whether have we met the demand of the housing needs, unfortunately the answer is the same. It is not changed in the last 20 years time. So there is a need for us to be focused on affordable housing. So that's where we set our focus on providing homes for affordable and mid-market segment. That has helped us. And a few other things, people were talking about backward integration and doing everything, right from land aggregation to construction to procurement to development, marketing. We thought probably time has come that we should focus only on one area where we could be the master. The rest of the areas, we should identify the right set of partners who can come along and be part of our journey and help building the business together. That's what we decided. We decided to stay focused only on development aspect, leaving the contracts, leaving the land aggregation, land procurement, those aspects to some other people, which we did not want to get into it, which has helped us, and also retain some of the key areas, whether it is product design or efficient way of designing the product itself, efficient way of designing the product with the cost optimization, and the way with which we can sell, or we can find different ways and means with which we can sell our product. And how do we bring customer loyalty? How do we ensure that customers stay firm with us for the next 20 years? These are all some of the areas we decided to stay firm, and that has helped us to define ourselves in the right place. It was good. The first 7-8 years of journey was good. There was a defining moment in this space, 2005. Not even 2005. December 2005, Government of India first time announced foreign direct investment to be permitted in real estate. So end of December 2015, this notification came in. We took early mover advantage of raising capital through private equity, and probably we are the first among the few to tap this private equity capital in a much larger scale. Today, God's grace, today we hold substantial quantum of money which has come into the country in private equity space in real estate. We raised close to about $809 million of capital which has been raised by us since for FDI has been permitted in real estate. So that was the next phase of journey wherein we have been able to attract good quality institutions to come and partner with us. So we had our first project level investment in Chennai. It was a very large township. It was a 7 million square feet township which has got SEZ, office space, retail, residential component. Sun Apollo came in as our first partner, and that has helped us that has given a lot of confidence. Until then we were doing small projects with limited capital. So this was the first redefining moment which has helped us to think much larger and much bigger. So we started the journey very well. Thereafter, another redefining moment was the support what we received from large private equity capital, Walton Street Capital and Starwood Capital. They came in sometime in end of 2007, through which they partnered with us in one project in Calcutta. Not only that, when we are looking at listing the company, when we are thinking of whether we can take the company public, at that point of time Walton Street came back and said, we would like to support your growth in building this company to much larger scale. They came in as equity partner in the holding company. So that was in 2008. Slowly, a lot of other people also started coming in. 2011, TPG came in and invested with us, and thereafter Tata Capital, sometime in 2015 and 16, they came and invested with us. So large 4 players, Walton Street Capital, Starwood Capital, TPG Capital and Tata Capital, all 4 very reputed large institutions operating across the world. They decided to partner with Shriram Properties. That was one of the most proud moment for me particularly, because I founded this business. It is my child. So the way I have grown, there is a recognition from these 4 large institutions. Large institutions are one of the most respected in the world. So they have decided to partner. The best part is they haven't partnered with any other real estate developer in the country. They have decided to partner after me. I'm sure they must have done a lot of diligence, and they must have had the desire to partner with quite a lot of people. I'm sure there must have been good number of people who could qualify into it, but they decided only to partner with me. That was the greatest recognition for the values with which we built business, for the governance principles with which we built the business. So that is one of the proud moment. Today, things are very different looking back, and we have become one of the largest real estate developers in the country, though started with zero capital in 1998. Today, we are one of the top 10 real estate developers in the country in terms of size, though we operate primarily in southern part of India and eastern part of India, but we are in the top 10 in the country today in terms of size. And also probably, whatever the number, most respected, respected for our values, for our practices, for our governance, for our complaints. So that's a pride moment. At the end of the day, I'm very proud and have no hesitation in saying that the values of middle class mentality that is helped in building the business in a very specific way, not to cut corners, not to do any shortcuts in conducting the business, not to cut on your values and principles. So few things we decided right from the day one, which I owe to my parents, I owe to the hometown I grew from, very small village, very small town, lot of values. Even today, there is a general thinking that people from small town carry a lot of hardcore values which they just do not compromise. So that probably has helped me in bringing those values into the business. Of course, I owe a lot to my chairman, Mr. Tyagarajan. I consider him as my mentor, as my father in business. I'm from a teacher's family. All my family members, majority of them, more than 90% of them are teachers. It is a very large family, joint family. You can find everyone was a teacher. So probably I should have ended up as a teacher. There was a preferred option when I was in the college. I was thinking in my desire, my dream to become a teacher, or at the most probably become a professor in a large college. There was the ambition with which every person in the teacher's family from a small town grew. But I owe to two people for this entrepreneurial journey. One was Mr. R.V. Subramanian. He was a police officer from Tamil Nadu. He was a very dear friend to my father. He is the one first gave me the confidence that I can do business. So he gave me the first courage to get into the business. Then Mr. Tyagarajan, I owe him everything in defining how the business can be conducted, how you can scale up the business without compromising any of your core principles, any of your values. The most important one, even when you achieve the highest level of growth, can you be the same person who you were about 20 years ago, who you were about 30 years ago? Can you be the same? Can you have the same humbleness? Can you be the same person in terms of your lifestyle, even after building $1 billion business? So that I owe to Mr. Tyagarajan. I consider him as a lot of values and principles. Today, as I said, Shriram Properties is in the top 10 today in the country. The journey is going to be much, much bigger. The next point, probably we should look at what is that COVID has done to the industry today. Just before COVID, there were a few other incidents. See, there were a few redefining moments, not only for Shriram Properties, not only for Murali as a person, for the industry also. First one was foreign direct investment was permitted. The next most important redefining moment was the NDA government, led by Shri Narendra Modi in 2014. They brought in certain way of conducting the business itself, just not real estate. Every business should be conducted in a particular way. So they have brought in few principles, or they have brought in some kind of a method with which it has to be done, or some kind of recognition. So that was another redefining moment for the industries per se. For the real estate, the most critical one is demonetization, which was much needed one. So that was one. The second one, the GST. It's just not for real estate, for the whole industry, how they need to conduct. GST was the second one. Third one, in the same line, is the Real Estate Regulatory Authority. So these three were the next most critical redefining moment for real estate industry. What is that these things have done? These three things have led to big consolidation in the market. I don't know whether consolidation is right or wrong, but this has led to consolidation of the entire industry. Not only that, this has divided clearly between the men and boys, which is most critical. Between the people who mean business, between the people who deliver projects, and unscrupulous developers. So there were several incidents before that, small incidents here and there, to clearly define the unscrupulous developers and the people who commit to deliver. But these three have put an end to people who live for long term and who value their commitment. So that was the big redefining moment. So industry got into a different shape, got into big consolidation. In fact, I recall one of the convention I was asked to do keynote, where I had to address close to about 800 developers across the country. That was about 4 years ago or 5 years ago, I don't recall. Must be about 4 years ago or 5 years ago. So at that time, just then Prime Minister talked about how business should be conducted in this country, and he was very firm. So I took some message from that. When I saw this, generally I go, without any big notes for me to give any keynote. When I was asked to do the keynote, I just went and saw those 800 people with a lot of jubilance, and it was not in India, it was outside India. So I felt probably this is not going to be the situation moving forward. The thinking what Prime Minister has got in conducting somebody's business. So I made a mention, probably soon we'll have our real estate developers meetings or convention not in ballroom anymore, can be in boardroom. So there was about 4 or 5 years ago. Unfortunately, it has become real today. So industry has gone through serious consolidation, particularly after these three incidents, and COVID has cemented that now. COVID, I do not know whether it is right or wrong. The industry was going through big consolidation. COVID now has cemented this consolidation part. Now industry may be left with about 50-60 developers across the country, not beyond that, and each city may be having about 10-15 people, not beyond that. They will cater to about 90% of the market or 90% of the market. Maybe several hundreds of people may be contributing to the remaining 5% or 8% market share. So that's where the market has shaped up. So COVID has done its bit in making sure that industry is consolidated, and also differentiating not the boys and men and good men. So that's the differentiation COVID has led to. This will lead to further. It's just not over. COVID is not over. It is here to stay for maybe a little longer time, unfortunately. But few things which are happening in the industry is that bigger consolidation today. Now, how should one conduct in this? So probably some people who are with deep pockets, people who are with core values, people who have the access to capital, they can survive. The others will have difficulties in surviving, just not because of these three aspects. COVID also has put a lot of pressure on the market and pressure on the industry. Our government has been doing whatever the best they can do. People always, a lot of people come and talk to me. Why don't you approach and impress upon the government to do little more? Yes, there is a good possibility they can do a little more, but whatever they could do at this point of time, they have been doing it. Few things one has to do it. One is they should, everyone should look at how to keep raising new capital. That's very, very important. Opportunity is going to be huge, humongous. It's not going to be small opportunity. If one needs to grow from whatever the position today, 2x every year, that's a possibility. 3x every year, that's a possibility. But can they do it is a question mark. It depends on how well they are equipped in managing the current situation. it should be a possibility. Few things one has to look at. One is the values with which they can do, capital raising capability, and how the technology can be brought in while conducting the business is another most critical one. Unfortunately, real estate or even the housing industry today, in the last 50-60 years, we have not got any great technology as a game changer today. From clay bricks to cement blocks, from cement blocks to concrete walls, it has taken about 60-70 years for us to reach this stage. Still we are not there. So we need to go beyond. And Prime Minister mission of housing for all by 2022, that was the mission he set about 4 years ago or so. I don't think housing for all by 2022 will be met. It will take at least another 5-6 years minimum, provided the government machinery roll up their sleeves and put their weight behind how this can be done. Then maybe another 7-8 years it is possible. Otherwise the gap is widening day by day due to several things. There has been a lot of inefficiency in the system, starvation of capital in the system. There is no big capital available. More than everything else, the red tapeism, even today in a big scale, though the government of India has been making a lot of attempts in simplifying the procedure, but it is not happening the pace with which they are dreaming. It is not the pace with which they are desiring today. There has been a lot of resistance across various bodies, various agencies. Unless everyone decide housing for all is not the thinking of our Prime Minister. Housing for is the need of every Indian. Housing for all or shelter above every individual is the birthright. Everyone deserves that. These 138 crore people should feel that. Then there will be a solution. Then they will ease out quite a lot of things. So few things apart from this, government regulation, that is one thing which is needed. Capital is second one. There has to be technology. See, we accept the technology on the e-commerce side now. We accept the technology on communication today. But when it comes to some of the hard assets, we still do not accept the technology easily. So unless we start accepting the technology, it will be difficult. And it is our responsibility to provide shelter to everyone in this country. It's everyone's responsibility. It's just not Prime Minister's responsibility. So everyone should also, its time has come. One man has been struggling a lot. Its time has come for every Indian, fellow Indian, to extend his shoulder to take some responsibility to uplift this country. Maybe next 10-15 years is the time we should give ourselves to uplift the entire nation today. It is not one man's effort, it is not few people's effort, everyone has to do it. So technology is one area we need to start focusing on, how to get this right. So technology in the business and also conducting the business itself will be playing a very, very important role today. Now the technology has been accepted in various other industries. Technology has been accepted the way of conducting the business. Soon it has to be accepted in real estate also. Soon it has to be accepted in housing business also. Then only we can get a solution. So technology will play a very, very important role. I'm sure something is hitting. We are constantly focusing on what technology we can use. What is the new thing we can use with which we can probably shorten the time period which we can complete the project, or we can do the same thing with a much reduced cost, or we can even conduct the business with much lesser cost. Instead of marketing cost spending X, can you spend X minus to get the same desired result? So we are constantly working on that. Not only we, the senior members in the industry have been working on this. So I'm sure something new. I don't know what will be the redefining moment. You don't know, but I love to wake up to a new redefining moment every day. So that's where I look for every day. I look for to wake up. Can we look up for another redefining moment, which can help giving back to the society, giving back to the community, which can in turn uplift the society is what I am looking for. Technology is one role I am looking at. So there can be, other things like procurement. is another one. See, we keep always talking about China, what is that China has done, China has scaled up and all that. We can also do it. If China can do it, we can also do it. We have done it in the service industry. I mean, there has been great organization, whether it is Infosys or TCS or Wipro or Cognizant, there has been great organizations have cracked this formula of being a leader in the world in the service industry, in the IT space. If we can do it, we can do it in the manufacturing also. But there are a few things we need to do it. Indians per se, as a society, we have been service oriented, we have been accommodative, we are relationship oriented society. Hence, there are a few things we need to make some changes to our approach to probably challenge China on manufacturing. So I think time has come today. We need to focus on how we can bring this manufacturing excellence, which is the most need of the hour today, for which procurement will play a very important role. Can we procure items at the best quality items at most economical rate, and also put those items into production and scale up on that? That's another most important one I think we should start looking at. I'm sure from the government side, they should look at probably, this has been, I've been raising voice on this. We should start, I think time has come to start trusting entrepreneurs. That's very important. Who are the wealth creators for this country? Only entrepreneurs can create wealth for this country. There are a lot of other things, administrative things which are required, but only entrepreneurs can create wealth. There is a huge distrust from the government to entrepreneurs or from the entrepreneurs to government. So I think that has to be broken. We need to start trusting entrepreneurs can deliver. So maybe there has to be some mechanism, or maybe some different approach. Like US, when they started their growth, first was to industrialization. They looked at industrialization as the way. Then they got into service side. Then they got into financial giant. So we probably did not do that. We focused on education, but unfortunately, some policies in the last 50-60 years have not led to, even giving education which can help in uplifting some people. It was more academic, it was a more book oriented. The new education policy which has been introduced, I think it's a great sign today. It's a major game changer. So probably, this should have been done about 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So new education policy which has been done can be a big game changer. Like this, there needs to be a new approach on how to bring industrialization in a big way. That's very important. Without that, we'll not be able to match up. Otherwise, we'll end up being exporting. We did, during COVID, some people asked me, how did you manage COVID? How did you handle COVID? How did you manage your time? Except those 22-23 days time lockdown, the rest of the time I was in the office. I've been in the office throughout, though I don't push people because a lot of fear was there. Today, we are close to about 80-90% of the workforce today, but at that point of time, we did not want to force. So we wanted to maintain distance and all that. So during this period, probably I did dipstick on what is happening on the overall global economy and how we can get things right, few things right as a nation. China, at the time, people are talking about there has been a lot of negativity on China, and people also believed that the entire manufacturing units from China, whether it's Europeans or Koreans or Japanese or Americans, will shift to India. That was an expectation between April, May, June, and a lot of hope was there. In fact, I was closely interacting with some people in the government side also on what was happening. One thing what I found, we were importing as a nation close to about $80 billion, $78 to $80 billion per year last 3 years. 2017, 18, 19, our import has been close to about $80 billion. If you convert that, close to about 560 to 6 lakh crore of value of goods we have imported from China. Then I got deeper into it. Top 10 items contribute close to 67% of the import. Then I was looking at, can we produce these top 10 items in India, which means you cut down your import to the extent of 67% of $80 billion, which is roughly about another $50 billion, which is nothing but about another 4 lakh crore, adding to our economy straight, one single shot. If we can make sure that, if we can impress upon the entrepreneurs here, if we can impress upon the industrialists here, if we can impress upon the government here, to make sure that we produce those items in India, we add straight 4 lakh crore to the economy, straight. It doesn't stop there. If you are able to crack this, US out of their overall import, close to about 22% imports coming from China. 12% of Europe, import is coming from China. If we are able to crack our need in India today, it's just not we develop the excellence of doing it for ourselves, we can also look at exporting to US and Europe. If we take 5% of the business, you create another 20 lakh crore of business, which is possible to be achieved in 2 years' time. Just 2 years' time. See, COVID has done a biggest favor to us in looking inward. What all can be done by us. So while we can keep blaming COVID, yes, COVID should not have happened. It's the most disaster one which has happened. Whoever has done it, it's just not acceptable. This has put the whole world into some kind of a negative roadmap. Now let us look at what is possible today. Let's look at now how we can create 20 lakh crore business out of India. It is possible. If we think next 2 years' time we will be able to make it. Just 2 years. We don't need a big deal out of it. Only thing we need to start telling us. We can keep on shouting, I don't want to import from China, boycott Chinese product, boycott ABCD and all that. We can keep talking about it. Let's show it in ground. We can show this in ground. It is possible. Identify these top 10 items or 15 items. Let's resolve. That will be manufactured in India. The first resolution. Then the second resolution, how do we make sure that this happens? That's very important. This cannot be done. We cannot go and sit in the temple and pray God that this should happen. No, it is not possible. He has given us enough intelligence. We should thank God that of having given intelligence. But we should get back how it can be done. Industries and the government should join hands, should trust each other, create the right ecosystem. That's very important. For example, one such example, textile. This has been my greatest disappointment. Coimbatore, Tirupur, Erode, Namakkal, Karur, Salem was considered to be Manchester of India. The biggest textile production was happening there. In Gujarat, Surat, there are a few places in Gujarat. So today, where are we today? We were the industrial hub. Today it's Bangladesh and Vietnam and Cambodia. Shameful. How can we allow this to happen? Why this has happened? We should also look at. Is it the greed of an industrialist? Or is it the regulation of government, or disturbance or red tapeism from the government? Maybe a combination of all. But we need to find a solution. We cannot be cribbing about it, what has happened. We can rebuild this textile build. Likewise, US has created, Detroit as automobile hub and Silicon Valley for, California for technology and Texas for oil and other related one. So Boston as education hub, New York as a financial hub. Probably, we need to bring in the concentrated excellence. Then only we'll be able to scale up. Today, what we have today is a distorted. That's the excellence. Everyone is intelligent today. We have got lots of excellence, around 38 crore people, out of which at least about 2 crore people can lead, can provide leadership, can give, a lot of ideas. All that is fine. But where are we bringing this concentrated excellence? Again, we all believe that, you pray for yourself, and collective prayers bring a lot of vibration. Collective prayers, bring a lot of enthusiasm. Collective prayers do a lot of great things. This is what we believe. Whereas some countries have practiced that. What values we have been teaching? This nation, this soil has preached the values for last thousands and thousands and thousands of years. 50,000 years, 20,000, 100,000 years, we don't know. We don't know even, there is no, you cannot define where our Vedas came from. which has a history of more than 100,000 years, more than 10,000 years, more than 2,000 years, more than 5,000 years, whereas some countries have adopted. We need to bring in this collective force. Distorted force we should avoid, for which the trust is the first one. We need to bring in this trust between the industries and government, between industry, government and the public. That's most important one. The second one, remove this red tapeism today. We have been talking about it. How do you remove the red tapeism? Just remove the tapes. Then you need not worry about whether it is red or green or anything. So first, we need to do that immediately. Then bring in this concentrated one. For example, why I am all favorable, I'm favoring this concentrated one. There is a survey which is done some time back, probably South India. If you take, you call for a plumber to your house, invariably you will find out of 3 times, one plumber will be from Orissa, maybe 2 fellows from Orissa. The plumbing, there is a small town in Orissa, the entire town is full of plumbers. It is there in their DNA. We are not exploiting that. We are not exploiting their potential. You go to Kerala, service is there with them. We can keep cribbing about, their attitude and all. There's a lot of jokes going on, but they have been excellent in services. Likewise, every area there has been some excellence. But how do we bring in those excellence and scale up? That's very, very important. So, for example, textile. Since I talked about it, textile, let's bring excellence in textile and let's create that as a textile giants in that place. Make that as a textile, industrial city in the entire country. We should be producing textile for the world from that place. Likewise, let's say automobile manufacturing, maybe UP. I am just giving some example. So we need to look at excellence. Then what will happen? The collective effort, collective excellence can help us to take it to a much bigger scale. I think COVID is a bigger opportunity, which has taught us a big lesson today. One thing we need to probably also appreciate, when the lockdown was announced, Prime Minister announced that was the need of the hour. 21 days or 24 days time, the lockdown was announced. One thing we should be proud as a nation, during those period, in fact, some of my colleagues came back and said, we are closing down the office. Will there be and it's a fully glass building, will there be a theft? Will there be a criminal act? Will there be a riot? And probably this will open new ones for those bad elements to take advantage of the situation, lockdown period. But those 21 days, the number of riots have come down to 0 almost. Criminal acts come down drastically to maybe very small percentage. Rapes have come down. Lot of these people have behaved very well due to 2 things. One is there was a trust, other is fear. Basically, we as a community, one of the best people, but there is no point in having complacency of being the best. How do we make sure that a fellow citizen next to us, he gets the best quality of life? That can be done only by putting our forces together, putting our intelligence together and creating a much, much larger enterprises. Then only we'll be able to do it. So COVID is a big opportunity. I think we should be able to manage this well and become the world leader maybe in the next 10 years. It is a possibility. I am sure we will all together have a big role to play, big responsibility to play.